ultimately we're our own scientists. All of us have our own unique DNA and genes. And, I think all of us need to look at ourselves as scientists and experiment with this stuff. And I mean, Huberman is an incredible role model because he tells you what is actually happening. And then it's up to you whether or not you want to try implementing it and see if it works with you and your routine. And, the glass balls that you have in your life, some of which you can't drop, like a family and kids and work. So, I realize that a lot of the things I do may not be accessible to everyone. I have, free time without kids, and some of the glass balls others can't drop. But I think some of these are multitasking without multitasking.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Invictus Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is a brand builder. He's an endurance athlete and a content creator, as well as a social media influencer. He's seeking edges in all things health, wellness, and vitality. Today, I'm excited to unpack the story of Eric Hinman. What's up, man?
Thanks for having me, Bryce. I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm great, man. So beautiful out here in San Diego. We got some glimpses of sun right now. This has been a rain-driven winter for us, which is a little bit different. We're so spoiled out here, and it almost feels like Seattle this winter, but it's also gently refreshing. How's it out there in Colorado?
Beautiful day today. It's sunny, 50. I just finished a mountain bike ride. The trails are starting to dry out. So we're coming up on my favorite season. I love spring, early summer, late summer, early fall. I moved to Colorado for the reason of being outside, just like I'm sure San Diego serves that purpose for you. So, it's amazing how much your environment dictates your reality and your happiness in life.
That's such a great observation there. And not just the environment, but the people you choose to spend time with. And how I ended up finding you and crossing paths with you is our good friend Matt Bickle. He's out here in San Diego right now. Sadly, as we just chatted briefly offline, got hit by a car while mountain biking the other day, but he's a big, resilient dude, and he's on the road to recovery. But how did you originally meet Matt, and what is your relationship with him like?
So I met Matt through Mike Idala, who was one of my very, very good friends, and in the 10,000 ambassador team early on with me. I don't know if you've ever met Mike or not. I'm sure he's passed through San Diego and maybe Invictus, but he introduced me to Bickle. They were both doing a lot of strongman training and sandbags and stuff back in 2018, I think it was. And they invited me over to his Rocky Mountain House of Fitness, and I had a workout with them, and it was the coolest, gym setup I had ever seen in my life. For those unfamiliar, Bickle has, a belt squat, a reverse hyper, 3 or 4 assault bikes, rowers, barbells, plates, and it's indoor, outdoor. And then he has a barrel sauna and cold plunge. So, it was just so cool going to his house and seeing the energy that he attracted there, the incredible people. And, after that, we started working out together. And then, for a couple years straight, I think I was there every single night to sauna and cold plunge when he's in town.
I love that, man. Something that's so fascinating to me. I've recently gone through, or I guess down the roadmap of memory lane a little bit, and I've been reconnecting with some of my old basketball teammates, some of my former CrossFit teammates, and it's so fascinating because there's this nonverbal bond that's formed through suffering next to one another, pursuing a common goal, whether that's a performance orientation, body composition, health or wellness, or enhanced health biomarkers. But more importantly, man, it's the connection. It's the friendships that are made before and after workouts, the chest bumps, in between, the energy and the enthusiasm that's kind of shared amongst one another. Will you chat briefly about the connection and the bonds that you've made through, pushing yourself to the limits and exposing yourself to do hard things?
Yeah, my best friends now are all health and wellness friends, entrepreneurs, brand builders, people that do sauna and cold exposure. I think I'm attracted to, people that are living with purpose and passion and incrementally push the ball forward and just want to be a little better than yesterday. And that dates back to my Ironman years. In my late teens and early 20s, I partied like a rock star, abused alcohol, and, fitness was what what took me out of that lifestyle. And I really started to feel like I found my way, and I found how to be the best version of myself through health and wellness, and specifically Ironman training. And, I realized during those years, the bonds I was forming with people that were doing the same thing were just, even more so than my buddies that I partied with in college. And it was amazing how fast that happened when you're suffering together. And, now a lot of my friends come from sauna and cold exposure. And whenever someone reaches out to me and proposes to do a coffee meeting or lunch meeting, I'm like, come over to the house and let's sauna. This is where we're going to have the best conversation, and we're going to form the deepest bond. And there really is something about those sauna conversations, just how vulnerable you are with your endorphins racing. Your phone's going to overheat in 3 minutes if you have it in there with you. So you can't be on your phone with distractions. Totally. So, I love sauna meetings now, and I love bonding with people in the sauna, but, working out is still a big component of that, doing community workouts and meeting new people, and, just continuing to deepen the bonds with my friends with exercise.
Yeah, for sure, man. You mentioned previously when we were chatting a little bit offline around all the different sports that you exposed yourself to in high school. After high school, what led to the party lifestyle? What was attractive about that for you? And, what was kind of taking place at that time in your life? Was there a form of adversity? Were you trying to distract or deflect from something? And then what enabled you to have this health fitness catalyst to find your way out of that downward spiral?
Yeah. So looking back, I really think it was the public perception of success, chasing that, wanting to have the nice suits, the nice cars, the pocket squares and cufflinks, the nice watches. And, also the party lifestyle, it looks attractive when you're around beautiful women and, watching people have a lot of fun. So I think that's what I was attracted to, is the public perception of what, society kind of tells you is fun and successful. College, that's a big part of the lifestyle is drinking to meet people and going out to parties. There really wasn't gym workouts or saunas to meet people in. That was the only thing I knew of how to meet new people, and also how to be vulnerable. I hadn't reached a comfort level with myself yet to be vulnerable, super vulnerable without drinking. Mm-hmm. So, it was when I hired a personal trainer in my mid-20s and I started getting that post-workout endorphin high that I realized that, I feel like the man after I exercise, similar to that feeling of when you're drinking and you feel like the man or the woman. So, exercise. And it's a snowball effect. The more you exercise, the healthier you're generally going to eat, the better sleep you're going to get. You'll probably start doing some recovery protocols. You'll want to go to bed earlier. And, all of that just kind of led to, why would I want to drink anymore when I'm having so much fun during the day? Like, I'm living for the day now instead of living for the night, which was very much the college years and my early 20s, was, working during the day so that I could party on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. And I think once you're able to design a life around your passions and you look forward to every single day, and, you don't look forward to the weekends anymore because every single day is the same, alcohol is less interesting.
Yeah, that's such a great way to describe it. You're not just living for those 2 days anymore. Now you've got 7 days of fulfillment. And I can't help but lean into the concept of achievement without fulfillment isn't really success at all. You may be an outward success in the public eye, but then behind closed doors, if you're masking emotional pain or all kinds of things with alcohol or other substances, I don't know if that's really success in my humble opinion. Trident Coffee is sponsoring this episode of the Invictus Mindset Podcast. My guys over at Trident taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good and bad, and everything in between. At Trident, they're storytellers. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. They help create connections through symbology and storytelling that engage their customers on an emotional level, and this distinguishes them from other coffee brands. You can find Trident in Imperial Beach and in Coronado. They offer over 14 plus nitro cold brews along with dairy-free options. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from their keto bakery. All these options will allow you to support your health and fitness journey with Trident Coffee. They're more than just a coffee company. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Once again, that's tridentcoffee.com. Use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Take your coffee experience to the next level. Two important factors for us over at Invictus Mindset are true care and attention to detail. My friends over at RX Smart Gear have been bringing innovative fitness tools to the market since 2009. From their award-winning Evo speed ropes to their amazing gymnastics grips to their line of inflatable fitness equipment, they're constantly looking to problem solve within the fitness industry. They're always allowing us to have our gear work for us rather than against us. Hop on over to RX Smart Gear and use discount code Invictus Mindset to shop their latest cutting edge gear. Have your gear work with you and not against you. And I think what's really awesome to me is just the authenticity at which you live now. And you mentioned the word vulnerability, and that's something we talk a lot about on the podcast. And so many people that don't expose themselves to challenging things and are not necessarily authentically living the lifestyle, they struggle with the conversations of vulnerability and the depth of coming toe-to-toe with adversity. And I think it's really cool that you found your way. You had the courage to hire a personal trainer. I mean, in your 20s, I'll speak for myself here, I thought I knew everything, right? Like you're young, you think that you have the answer to the world's problems. You have this reservoir of potential that you think you have access to at any time. And the hiring of a coach or a specialist, at that time, you're like, I'm probably not going to do that. And then now looking back, you're like, man, that's the cheat code. If you spend time with people that have done it already, that's the fast track really to success.
Mm-hmm. I can't agree more with you. That's some of the biggest advice I give others is if the only way to really fast track success is to find someone who's done what you want to do and befriend them, develop a relationship with them, add some kind of value to them so they'll give value back to you. And that was my triathlon coach and, CrossFit. I surrounded myself with people that have been to the CrossFit games or coaches that have coached athletes to get to the CrossFit games. In my various businesses, it's always surrounding myself with people that, have gotten to where I want to go in business, content creators, same thing. So I can't agree any more that, mentors and the conversations that I have with people are really the way I learn. I very rarely watch the news or read books anymore. It's really just the conversations with like-minded people or people that have gotten where I want to go.
That's super cool, man. And early on, you were involved in some business. I believe you were an insurance agent for a little while, and you've chatted extensively around, how you've been able to build freedom and flexibility into your lifestyle through building assets and residual income. Will you chat about how you got into that and how that serves as a great tool for you now, so that way you don't have necessarily the monetary constraints that many content creators have?
Definitely. So I still own that business, and the property and casualty insurance agency was something that my father led me down the path of. He managed a small mutual insurance company in upstate New York, and all of my childhood, like I wanted to be him. I wanted to lead and I wanted to run a business. So when I graduated from college, he gave me a small salary and a company car and told me to go door to door and sell insurance. So for 7 years, I drove 50,000 miles a year with a suit and tie on, and I sold insurance to campgrounds and marinas in upstate New York. And, I realized some really valuable things through that time period, that I was building, an asset that I could eventually sell. I was building residual income, which was going to free me up to do other things later in life. And it also taught me like people skills and, not to be deflated when you hear no. It really is just compounding consistencies and, again, just like incrementally pushing the ball forward. I never had any like breakthrough moment. All of the breakthrough moments, getting to Kona or, building a business, have been like 5 years in the making, the 10,000 hour rule. And it's just like staying laser focused on that one thing for long enough to be successful in it. So yeah, that insurance business paved the way to everything else. I started a software company when I was 27 or 28 years old. hired someone to run the insurance business for me. So during that time period, I learned delegation, automation, and elimination in order to manage multiple businesses, and also trained for Ironman during that time period. 4 years in software, building mobile applications. I was on the business development side of the business. I had 6 other business partners, and then opened 2 restaurants, opened a gym, and started investing in consumer brands. So each of those kind of paved the way to the next thing. And each of those also were learning opportunities. Some became successes, some were failures. And, you really learn along the way with the reps and sets. So, that's what all of those businesses were. They gave me the mindset to take on risk. And I think the ability to take on risk comes with practice. The more, things you do to take risk, the better you're going to be at taking the next risk.
Eric, that is just a world of information that I think is so valuable for people to hear. I mean, starting off working with the insurance company, just the sheer ability to sell. Selling in and of itself is a really valuable tool. What were some of the sales techniques that you kind of acquired over time? And how were you able to kind of share going door to door early on some of those deliverables? How did you practice the art of public speaking and reading body language and the emotional maturity to manage and handle the word no, where it's like at a young age, you're fortifying this really healthy relationship with failure, where rather than it just putting you down in the dumps, it's a data point for you to just be like, oh, that didn't work. Try a different approach next time.
100%. I think the biggest thing I learned during that time period is how much relationships matter. And, I've leveraged that through time. And honestly, that's what I get paid for now with the brands I work with, are the relationships that I have and the ability to make connections, valuable connections for people. And, hearing no sucks, but reps and sets, the more you hear no, the more you're able to emotionally separate yourself from that and not say, that's me, that's on me. Oftentimes it's just, customers are going to come and go. They're going to find, maybe a better option. They may move away. There's so many options. And, I learned to put myself in other people's shoes instead of, me just thinking it was me all the time. Like, everyone has their own story. Everyone has had their own experiences. And the no doesn't mean that you suck at sales. It might just mean that, based on their experiences they've had in life, or based on the relationships they already have in life, they're not interested. It's not you. So I was able to separate myself from, hearing that word, which certainly sucks, and when you hear it when you're young, and, you're hoping that everyone likes you and that, that you can develop relationships. But yeah, relationships were the big thing that I learned, that, everything in life is having social capital, but in a way that, it's meaningful relationships with people, not just, a number next to your name, or not just fame. It really comes down to, have you created relationships with people where you've added value for them?
I love that, man. I think it's super cool too that you possess perspective. So much of the world just, views what's going on in their interactions solely from their own lens. But I think it's really important that we look at it not just from our lens, but from the consumer's lens, from a third bird's eye view lens. I've heard a few times, I think Alex Hermosi talked about like trying to observe your behavior and your actions as if you were watching a movie. Like, if you were watching you, would you want to emulate you? And I think that's kind of a fun way to think about it in some cases. At that time, early on, social media wasn't massive at the time. And you're building this social currency, you're building relationships. Who were some of the mentors or people that you looked up to other than your father at that time that helped provide a little bit of guidance in shaping your value system, your processes, your procedures, and your systems?
That's always changed over time. It depends on what chapter I'm writing. In the insurance years, it would have been people that built insurance agencies or business mentors. Ralph Simone is someone who comes to mind, who was a leadership coach in Syracuse, New York, who taught me all about delegation, automation, and elimination, and just helped me understand to, write down all of those things that you're really, really good at. Write down those things that you don't think that you are the best in the world at, and start outsourcing, a lot of those things so you can focus on your superpowers. So he was super instrumental in taking his course when I was in Syracuse. In the triathlon years, it was very much my triathlon coach, who was Mike Corona. When I first got into the sport, I was doing everything just too hard. I was coming into it having trained with a personal trainer, and I was doing CrossFit type workouts with him where it was short, explosive, anaerobic, and I thought that was working out. Every day you got to try and go a little bit harder to get fitter. So that's how I came into triathlon, of like each day I'm going to try and run a little bit faster and bike a little bit harder and swim a little bit faster. And because I was doing that, I couldn't put in the type of volume that is necessary to become a really good endurance athlete, specifically Ironman. So, I would beat this guy Mike in all of these Wednesday night triathlons, like crush him. And I was looking very fit then because I was lifting weights at the time and I had a six pack, and most other triathletes in the area weren't lifting and weren't super muscular. So I'm like, why the hell does this guy beat me in races if I beat him every Wednesday night at these practice triathlons? So he taught me the valuable lesson of slow down to speed up, zone 2, Maffetone heart rate training. And it took him a good 6 months until I finally listened to him and, realized that his way was the right way. So he was a big mentor during those Ironman years of, there's a big difference between training and exercising. He taught me how to train for something and do it purposefully. And then, now I look to content creators and people like Alec Hermosi, who have scaled businesses that understand, processes and procedures and structure to get to where you want to go. So yeah, over the years, it always changes just based on what I'm trying to do in that moment.
For sure. I love the concept of slow down to speed up. And it's interesting too, because also what I'm hearing is early on in your triathlon training, there was a lot of external comparison, especially with general body composition. You're like, I look this way, I train all these different modalities. Why is it not paying off the way I think it should? And sometimes our narrative needs gentle construction or reconstruction in order to move the needle in the right direction. And understanding energy systems, much of CrossFit's very anaerobic, meaning that shorter sprint style workout, and understanding the concepts of just volume and durability and heart rate consistency, which sometimes means we need to slow down and practice the art of sustaining that over the course of time. And I think it's really cool now that Zone 2 is kind of floating to the surface. We're seeing a lot more heart rate monitors being used, Whoops, Garmin's, all the data trackers helping to manage some of that. And I'm honestly, man, at the very least, yes, I think that stuff's incredibly important for high-level athletes seeking elite performance. But we all listen to Peter Attia. We're listening to, all these different amazing people in their podcasts talking about getting sunlight and just going outside for a 10-minute walk. And I think the Zone 2 stuff, if we can get people just moving more, now the total lifestyle impact is so much higher.
I can't agree more. My mom walks every single day. She's 72, super healthy. And yeah, I attribute a lot of that to her walking every single day. That's such great exercise. Walking, I think, is one of the best things that you can do to start getting back into health and wellness and into shape. Also, anyone at a super high level in their sport generally is not the healthiest human on the planet.
That's so true, man.
They're pushing it to an extreme. Yeah, they're pushing it to an extreme. I mean, when I was elite at Ironman, I certainly it was not good for longevity. It was not good for health span. I was pounding myself into the ground. My cortisol levels were high. My testosterone was low. It was not something that I'm glad I didn't make it just a complete lifestyle. I'm glad I wrote that chapter for 5 years, but my training now is much more diversified of anaerobic training and weight training. And I still love the Zone 2 stuff and endurance training, but my mountain bike ride I just went on was 60 minutes where, I typically during those Ironman years wouldn't do anything under a couple hours on the bike and wouldn't run under 45 minutes. Everything had to be long duration, and it's addicting. You have to go further and faster to get that same high. high. So, over time you get addicted to the exercise, and that's another dangerous place to be. And another reason why I love sauna and cold exposure so much, because I don't have to get that second or third workout in now. If I still want to, have flow state all day, I can do some recovery modality and get that same boost in serotonin doing something that is helping me to get high volume in again the next day.
Such a great observation, Eric, in the sense of all of these things are tools. More is not better, better is better. And anything used and abused too much, or too much intensity or too much frequency, inevitably has diminishing returns. And I've heard you speak before about some of your relationship and listening to Dr. Andrew Huberman. And, I know he's put out some amazing content around sauna and cold exposure, along with Dr. Rhonda Patrick. This episode is brought to you by HVMN, Health via Modern Nutrition. They launched the world's first ketone drink in 2017, and then in 2022 launched the version 2 of their exogenous ketone product line called Ketone IQ. I found that incorporating ketones into my morning routine increased my daily focus and energy. The beauty of this product is that you can stack it. It doesn't even have to replace your morning routine. My morning routine looks like taking the dog on a walk, hitting my daily shot of Ketone IQ, hopping in the cold plunge, and then finishing it off with a nice Trident coffee while I soak up some morning sunlight. Try out some ketones for yourself by using the code INVICTUS for 20% off Ketone IQ. Ketones are a super efficient fuel for your brain that leaves you feeling energized and clear-headed. Give it a shot. I promise you won't regret it. Once again, use code INVICTUS for 20% off Ketone IQ. Move fast and break shit. This is one of the core values at LSKD, and something that we fully resonate with here at the Invictus Mindset Podcast. LSKD develops functional sportswear with a streetwear aesthetic that's on a mission to inspire you to chase the vibe through sport, fitness, and adventure. Through my experiences with LSKD products and their team members, I have found a brand that I can call home that keeps me performing at my highest level through fitness and business. I train daily in the rep shorts and love the versatility they offer, so I can go from training at the gym directly to meetings, client consults, running errands, or preparing for podcasts. The LSKB vibe has finally reached San Diego, and we want you to experience it too. Go to us.lskd.co to start shopping today. We want to inspire you to chase the vibe. And, you mentioned, occasionally you'll, as you're winding down before bed in your nighttime routine, these are some of the people that you listen to. What are some of the major takeaways that you've derived from some of these higher level scientists? Because I'm a huge believer in sharing and creating buy-in around like, hey, you know what? You want to know what this feels like? Come over, spend time with me. Let's have an experience, and you can actually feel it. But for some of the remote personnel that are consuming podcasts like this, what are some good ways to create buy-in very similarly to the doctors that I mentioned previously?
I mean, same as you. I love people to experience it. We have this policy where every day from 5 o'clock until 7 p.m., people are passing through to use our sauna and cold plunge, because I know how much it benefited me, and I want it to benefit others in that same way. So same with our backyard. It's a gym so people can come over and work out. I mean, so much of it is for others. We obviously love having our environment right here to do the things we enjoy, but I love treating others to that. I think Huberman is incredible. Ultimately, we're our own scientists. All of us have our own unique DNA and genes. And, I think all of us need to look at ourselves as scientists and experiment with this stuff. And I mean, Huberman is an incredible role model because he tells you what is actually happening. And then it's up to you whether or not you want to try implementing it and see if it works with you and your routine. And, the glass balls that you have in your life, some of which you can't drop, like a family and kids and work. So, I realize that a lot of the things I do may not be accessible to everyone. I have, free time without kids, and some of the glass balls others can't drop. But I think some of these are multitasking without multitasking, by jumping in cold water for 2 or 3 minutes every day, or taking that cold shower, it's going to make you a better father, a better husband, a better employee, a better business owner. It's going to make you less stressed out, less anxious. Like it just makes you a better person. So I think the perception of a lot of these things that athletes do are for physical performance and physical recovery, but so much of it is for the mental component of it and the emotional benefits of it. So, whenever I listen to something from Andrew Huberman, I just say, oh, okay, that's why I feel the way I do when I do it. That makes sense now, because it's increasing my serotonin levels. That's why I'm happy after a sauna session and cold plunge.
Yeah, totally.
And I get better sleep when I go out and get sunlight in the morning, and I get better sleep if I'm moving often. And all of it is cool to associate back to, all of the studies they've done. But yeah, just a pleasant reminder that we're all scientists. All of us are out there tinkering, and all of us have to figure out like what works best for us and how to design our lives around those things.
For sure. And I also think it's cool, the concept that you talked about, 2 to 3 minutes in cold water. That's what I describe as MVD, minimal viable dose. You can do something for as short as 2 to 3 minutes and to get this huge return on investment with really quickly how you feel with that norepinephrine dump, your ability to manage stress. You're accumulating a win for the day because you did something hard. And usually that first win, whether that's making your bed or doing the dishes or doing some laundry or getting in cold water, it creates momentum. And once you have that momentum, it makes it a lot easier to get in some of those really challenging things that maybe psychologically have more barrier to entry than other things. And the other major takeaway is you live so primal. And it's so interesting because I think Mark Sisson wrote the book, The Primal Blueprint. And, since then we've seen Paul Saladino talk about primal living. We've seen Liver King do it. And then there's a bunch of us that kind of pull forms of that in different fashions. And those 9 ancestral tenets, you make time for those 9 things just about every day. And for people that don't know, those 9 things are sleep, eat, move, connect, shield, cold, sun, fight, and bond. And I think, man, if we can really live a little bit more primally, I actually think a lot of the business logistics, a lot of the success, a lot of the glass balls that you mentioned inevitably take care of themselves if we think about trying to touch on each of those 9 things once a day or once every week.
I can't agree more. Simplify. That's what you just said, is simplify your life so that you thrive. And society tells us that we, have to have the big house and nice clothes and nice cars and make a lot of money. And, obviously we need money to buy food and shelter and things that we need in life. But yeah, ultimately, I think if you can live more primally, you're going to be happier. I am, for sure. The more I move, the better I feel. The more I expose myself to various discomforts, the better I feel. And I also love that you said, kind of stacking wins. That is so important. I think Tony Robbins said it, progress is happiness. And I truly believe that. That's how I tick. Like, I need progress to feel satisfied and happy. And, as little as, making espresso in the morning for my girlfriend and her kissing me because she loves the espresso and hopefully loves me too. And, getting that morning workout in is my first big win of the day. And it sets me up to then have productive meetings and podcasts and mental clarity and cognitive ability throughout the day. So a lot of these are just, tiny wins that stack up so that you have this mindset of progress. So like when you said, when something, hard comes up or bad comes up, like it doesn't just completely throw you out of whack.
It's compounding consistencies, just like you talked about from the business world. And I can't help but lean into, when I was back in high school, we had this assistant coach. He was this little guru, and his name was Coach Shim. And he was a volunteer coach, and he would show up every day, and he always paid attention to the details. And if you missed the details, he would stop the whole practice, he'd scold you for not doing the details, and then we'd get back to practice. And if we screwed it up consistently over time, he'd have us do like fingertip push-ups. And I remember my senior year approaching him, and I was like, Coach Shim, why do you do what you do? Like, why do you care so much? You drive all the way to this school. You volunteer to coach a bunch of us knuckleheads that, at the time we had a pretty prestigious basketball school. So all of us had egos bigger than Jupiter. We all tried to talk back, and he managed all of us and really put in the passion to think like, yeah, I'm helping create better basketball players, but in reality, I'm helping to create better men. And I remember after we had won the city championship in 2008, he said, you know, Bryce, the reason why I do what I do is because if you help other people succeed, you'll always be okay. And what I love about the life that you're building, Eric, is that it's not just for you. It has this trickle-down effect, and you get to be the guinea pig, and then there's this filtration system in your contribution and service to others. And Elon Musk said it best in 2 very profound words: be useful. And you're providing use and value to other people that not only comes with basic value, but it comes with an experience. It comes with a story. It comes with a relationship. And now people walk away from that experience, and it's just like awe and wonder. And there's more to it. It's just the beginning of the story. And the other people that live similarly are Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese. Every time I've gone up there, we've had some sort of pool workout and then sauna and ice and, had some coffee and spitballed. Really amazing conversation in the sunlight. And I think if all of us can take some of these nuggets around helping other people succeed, and you will too, the world can be a really, really magical place. I mean, it already is, but more magical than it already is,
Agree. I mean, Huberman had a podcast recently on happiness, and such a big component of it was giving to someone and knowing that that person really enjoyed whatever it was that you gave to them. And I believe that. I mean, it just fills my soul when someone comes over here to sauna with us and, they leave afterwards and shoot me a text message an hour later, like, God, that was one of the best days I've had in a while. Like, that feels so good to share that with someone.
What does a day in your life look like? You mentioned getting up in the morning and making some espresso, and then you have your morning workout. But to paint a little bit of imagery for people, what's a day in the life look like?
Sure. So I don't set an alarm. Generally, I get up around 6 to 6:30 in the morning. First thing I do is make espresso for myself and Sarah. Mornings are kind of slow. It's generally just kind of planning out my day, planning what the workout is going to be, looking at my calendar and see what content I have to create for the day, what podcasts I have, what meetings I have, and just preparing for those. And after that, the gym is the first big win of the day. I loosely follow Matt Frazier's HWPO. So I'm in a CrossFit gym 5 days a week, training with people that I really enjoy being around at this place called V23 in just south of Denver. And about 90 minutes of CrossFit training in the morning. And then after that, I block out from 10:30 until about 1 o'clock for desk work, whether it's meetings with brands, creating content, podcasts. That's my time to really focus on work. And then from 1 o'clock until 3 o'clock, that's always blocked out. My phone is on airplane mode, and that's reserved for mountain biking, trail running, hiking. I always do it outside just so I can get sunlight, and I pick skill-based activities with some risk associated with it over non-skill-based activities with no risk. So mountain biking, I like better than road riding, and trail running over pavement running. I just feel like it trains my mind to be completely present because you have to be in those sports. And then from about 3 until 4:30, another work block of creating content, podcasts, meetings. And then 4:30 until 6:30 every day, we have 6 to 8 people that come over here and sauna and do cold exposure. Typical practice is 3 rounds, 20 minutes in the sauna, 3 to 5 minutes in the cold plunge. Sauna is about 200, cold plunge, depending on the time of the year, is around 40. And that's also when I invite new people in. I have this rule of I want to meet at least one new person every single day. So there's generally at least a couple new people in the mix doing that sauna and cold exposure with myself and some of our friends. And then I cook for a bunch of people that end up staying after the sauna and cold exposure. That's been my new passion over the last year and a half. I bought a Yoder smoker. So I love smoking steaks or meat, chicken, fish, whatever on the Yoder smoker. 45-minute wind down routine, watch YouTube, try to learn something, and then we go to bed around 9:30-ish, sleeping by 10, and rinse and repeat, do it again the next day. And even when traveling, I try to stick to a pretty similar schedule, searching for either a friend's house or place that has a sauna, near cold exposure, accessible running trails or accessible running paths. I look up gyms, I look up healthy restaurants whenever we travel. So, I can kind of stay in that same routine of things, again, that I know make me the best version of myself.
Eric, that's so well defined. I really appreciate you sharing all that. And it just also shows like there is structure and you do set aside concentrated time to help elevate and delegate your content creation for brands. And it always comes off so authentic because you actually use the products. I know there's a lot of influencers out there that, market these products on their social media, but don't actually use the products that they're marketing. And it's cool to see that you tinker with them. You get the positives, the negatives, and everything in between with some of the products. And I am a big fan of that. I also think it's cool. There's all these societal narratives and norms around like travel. LMNT, pronounced element, is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means a science-backed electrolyte ratio with none of the junk. No sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and most importantly, no BS. Whether it's after a long workout, hot yoga, or an intense sauna and ice session, I've been using Element to keep me hydrated and replenishing all of my lost electrolytes. So many of us wake up chronically fatigued, and the antidote to this is salt water. Salt has previously been blamed for blood pressure issues, but new research shows that replenishing salt and electrolytes can lead to more energy, no headaches, a clear mind, and enhanced focus. Use the link drinklmnt.com/InvictusMindset to make any purchase of Element, and you will receive a free sample pack with all of the Element flavors. Once again, that's drinklmnt.com/InvictusMindset. And some people might classify like, oh, why do you have to be close to a gym? We're traveling, like you're in vacation mode. And I'm very much like you. Like I want those things a part of the travel experience. Otherwise, it depreciates the experience when I get there. The mental clarity is not there. I end up being a little bit frustrated. There's not opportunity to continue giving love to this oiled machine that wants to continually seek higher levels of connection and euphoria and mental clarity and just honestly feeling good, priming the system with other people. And sometimes that's hard to do when traveling. So it's cool that you take the time to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love my life and I love my routine. So when I travel, I just want the same things, but, new experiences, new sights, and new people. Those are the things that matter to me when I'm traveling, seeing new cultures. But ultimately, I want to live my same lifestyle wherever I am because I love the lifestyle I live, where I am in Denver every single day.
That's cool, man. Are you a Nuggets fan or a Broncos fan by chance?
I'm not. I don't watch very many sports, but funny you asked about sports. We had some Creighton basketball players who came over on Friday night. They follow me on social media, and they messaged me a couple days before and said that they were playing in the NCAA tournament in Denver and asked if they could come over and sauna after their game. Cool. So I was like, hell yeah, come over. Would love to meet you guys and chat with you. So they came over Friday. They won their game. So they're playing today at 5:10, and they gifted us tickets to the game tonight. So we may go and watch that game tonight. But I used to be a Syracuse basketball fan when I was in Syracuse. I had season tickets for years, but I really haven't followed any sports since I got into triathlon. I mean, that really consumed my life for 5 years and changed a lot of my behaviors and, also really taught me that I wanted to be out there creating instead of tuning in. And nothing wrong with sports. I think they're great to watch and it's fun and, there's community and camaraderie around it. But, I enjoy doing it as opposed to watching it. I want to be playing basketball if I'm watching basketball, and I don't want to watch mountain biking. I want to be out mountain biking. I want to be out running. I want to be doing these things. Yeah,
totally, man. Syracuse, New York is a cold place, man. How did you get into triathlon while living out there and make it work? And I'm assuming a relatively confined space because you probably can't do a ton outside during many seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do 5-hour bike rides indoors on my trainer in my home gym.
Did you have this
gnarly.
Special seat pad?
And I mean, No, I didn't. It was what I
Oh
raced
man.
on. And it was on my triathlon bike, a lot of it in the aero position to get comfortable. I mean, during those years, I wanted it so bad. I so wanted to be, in Kona racing. And about 6 to 8 months into the sport, like I just visualized so much. All of my training sessions, I was thinking about being one of those Kona Ironman athletes. So, I would do almost anything during those years to get there. So yeah, I just designed my environment to the best of my ability to be able to get all of my training in. So I did most of my running outside, but I did have a treadmill and sometimes had to run upwards of 90 minutes indoors on a treadmill. But typically, even in the wintertime, I would run outdoors. But biking, 80% of my biking was done indoors on a trainer where I could control all of the variables. I could hit the wattage that I was supposed to hit for the training sessions. And, obviously nice days in the summer, I would get out. But what got me into it was with my personal trainer. I started getting back into physically good looking shape and good anaerobic shape. I signed up for the Utica Boilermaker, which was a 15K race, so 9 miles. And it just crushed me. I ran like 8:45 pace, which, in high school, I could run a 18-minute 5K. So it was a pretty slow pace. And I realized there was a big difference between looking fit and actually being fit. So during that time period, I started running again. I bought a road bike, started road biking. And when I was out road biking, I started to meet some people who had these fancy triathlon bikes that had 4 handlebars. And I wanted one. I thought they looked really cool. So I bought the triathlon bike, which led me to sign up for a sprint distance triathlon. That first sprint distance triathlon, I almost drowned in the swim. It was in Cazenovia, New York, and it was a really windy, choppy day. And I had to side stroke and backstroke my way through it. But I passed a lot of people on the bike. I had a lot of strength from doing thrusters and squatting and deadlifts. And I passed people on the run. So it was really empowering. And I think I ended up coming in like 3rd place in my age group in the non-pro division in that race. So I'm like, I think I could be kind of good at this sport. So I signed up for another triathlon a month later and improved my time. And, it's one of those sports that really sucks you in. You just want to keep getting, you want to keep getting faster and you want to keep going further and just kind of see what your body was capable of. And, that was that, 5-year David Goggins type chapter for me of like, I want to see what I'm capable of. I want to see, how uncomfortable I can get. I want to scare myself with these lofty goals. And, I did it. I did a half Ironman. And at the end of that race, I told my girlfriend at the time that I would never do that again. And then like 45 minutes later, I'm signing up for Ironman Lake Placid the next
cool,
year. Do Ironman Lake Placid and couldn't walk for a week after doing the race. I was so smashed. And then fast forward to my very last race, Kona 2014. I had a CrossFit workout the day after, and I was more sore from the CrossFit workout than I was from the Ironman because my body had just become so durable to the sport. It's crazy.
Incredible.
Yeah, I think Laird Hamilton actually talks about, your body, just getting used to whatever house you build for it.
That's a cool way to describe it for sure. Early on when you were going down the journey of Ironman training, were Cameron Haynes and David Goggins big people for you to look up to, and just kind of the mindset and how they attacked life? And, if not then, are they now?
Definitely now. I didn't know of them back then. I mean, my Ironman years were 2010 to 2014. Maybe David Goggins had started to come on the scene, but I don't know that Cam Haynes was really on the scene yet. During those years, I followed Ben Greenfeld. I took a lot of his advice. I think my smoothie got up to like 30 ingredients at one point.
Same,
and then, Yeah. And then Dave Asprey, he kind of the father of biohacking. Yep. So I certainly was paying close attention to all of the stuff he was talking about. I was on a high fat diet during those years and, teaching my body to burn fat for fuel. And yeah, those guys were later. I certainly am very aware of them now and love what they're doing. But also, I think you don't want to make that a lifestyle. I think it's important to write a chapter like that where you're seeking discomfort and like figuring out what that ceiling is for you. But, if you're just constantly raising that ceiling and it starts to affect your ability to perform physically and maybe even mentally, that's when you've probably overdone it. And again, it's something that is easy to get addicted to. It's easy when you do an Ironman to be like, oh, I wonder if I could do an Ultraman. And then you do an Ultraman and you're like, I wonder if I could run 250 150 miles. And, at what point does that start to like really take a toll on your body and it's going to affect you later in life?
I love that you said that because it's so easy to allow what you do to become your identity. And, if some is good, more is better, as I touched on before. And in some cases, it's like if you were to remove your ability to do that, or if there's some overuse injuries from doing it too frequently and chasing that same level of endorphin high, inevitably the dopamine or the positive reward system that comes from doing said task can be taken away from you in the form of injury or adversity. And that can be incredibly detrimental. Have you experienced any of that? Because, I'm assuming putting in these long hours on the bike, long hours on the trail, inevitably you're going to twist an ankle sometimes. Your hip flexors are probably incredibly tight from so much hip flexion. How do you keep yourself kind of healthy? Do you have body workers that you work with? And what's the mindset around identity in relation to taking part in all these crafts?
Yeah, great question. So 2015 and 2016 were really, really difficult for me. My last Ironman race was 2014 Kona. I was in Syracuse, New York, which is a very small city. I grew up in a very small town. And, that had become my identity as an elite Ironman athlete that did crazy things. And when I stopped competing because I didn't feel like I was starting to skip races and I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. I had really reached my goals within it. And I just felt like I was going through the motions in life because other people identified me as this elite athlete. So I jumped head and feet into CrossFit, and I was trying to put in the same amount of volume that I was doing with triathlon in CrossFit. So 3-4 hour sessions, metconning all day long. And I tore my MCL in 2015 or 2016. My shoulders were constantly just tweaked. My wrists were always bothering me. Everything was bothering me. And I'm like, how the hell do these CrossFit athletes do this? And it took me a bit to like separate myself and realize that just like in Ironman, there was a process to build to the type of volume that CrossFit athletes do. And a lot of it was resting more often and resting way more in between sets and, going hard and then resting long enough to repeat that same effort again. So I had to learn the hard way, how to properly train for CrossFit. And also during those years, I started to realize I was inspiring people, and I think that those were the transformative years of like, this is less about me. And this is like, I want to feel good every day, but I also want others to feel good every single day. And my identity started to become separated from being an elite athlete and having to compete with like, I just want to live my life in this way where I'm thriving and encourage others to do the same. But that took 2 years to separate myself from wanting to compete all the time and try to win something to like, I just want to do this for longevity and I want to feel good day in and day out. And, if I'm no longer, doing really well in races or competing, that doesn't matter. That's just stoking my ego. That really isn't soul satisfying. The soul satisfaction comes from the day in and day out, the process and, the exercise, the conversations I have with people that, exercise fueled the mental clarity to have that conversation and the cognitive ability and the bonds formed, like all of that became more meaningful to me than the competition side of things.
I love that you use the word meaningful specifically. Like when I look at you, and something I try to emulate is just man's search for meaning. And I think you definitely live that lifestyle. And it's cool that you've been able to deconstruct a little bit of the challenges that you faced around ego and validation. Because recently I've heard you chat a little bit about your relationship with competition and how originally it was comparison of others or trying to chase numerical values or just the outcome. And recently I've heard you discuss how it's like you versus you and trying to become a better version of yourself. And that sometimes means you go slower to go faster. It may mean, hey, you're faster on the bike on this particular triathlon, but you got to back off some of the other things because you're working on a specific skill in a different season or chapter of your training. Will you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. All of this stuff, it is just the compounding consistencies. And, I think you need to understand how the best got to where they are, break that down, and then it just comes down to executing that on a daily basis to get to where you want to go. I had to do that with triathlon. I had to do that with CrossFit to get to where I am now with CrossFit. And CrossFit specifically was, strength matters so much. I always thought that because I had an engine that could go for days that, I can do burpees forever. I can do burpees fast. I can do wall balls forever, pull-ups. But so much of that is the strength component of it. If you get stronger with your lifts, it's going to make the wall balls easier because you're stronger. Certainly you need some engine, but I had to realize that my engine wasn't going to get me to where I wanted to go in CrossFit. That, my engine was way up here and my strength was way down here, and they had to equalize. It's like the guy who can deadlift 750 pounds, but, can't go more than 4 minutes in a workout because they're just super strong and they haven't worked on the conditioning component. And the other thing I learned too is that you're not going to lose everything. I used to be so scared about if I didn't run for 2 days that I would lose all my running fitness. If I took a month off running that I, would just be a horrible runner. If I took a month off biking that I'd lose all my bike fitness. If I took, some time off of strength training that I'd lose all my strength. And I've realized that once you get to a certain place with all of those, it's pretty easy to get back to it. If I focus a 6 or 8 week block on running, I can get pretty close to where I was in those Ironman years with running. And, I know from all of my friends that are super strong, like Bickle, they can get back to that same place with strength, even if they're not focused on strength training. If they've been biking and running all the time, like they have that in the tank and they can get back to that in a short amount of time. So I think you have to be willing to give up certain things for a certain time period in order to get better at your weaknesses when it comes to physical training.
For sure. It definitely takes a lot of lifetime reps and psychological maturity and accountability buddies to remind you of that. Because I don't know about you, but for me, when my natural default is wanting to be thin and wiry for basketball, for running and box jumps and double unders and toe to bar. And it's interesting because you're absolutely right. You don't lose a lot of the strength, but psychologically you feel like you're going to default to what you were the majority of your life. This episode is brought to you by Mush. My friends over at Mush created an incredibly cool product of ready-to-eat overnight oats. And for those of you that listen to the podcast often, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And Mush has done just that, as their products have no more than 7 clean ingredients that are dairy-free, gluten-free, with no added sugar. Mush started right here at Invictus, as they had a vision to create convenient, healthy, and clean nutrition. And this landed them on Shark Tank, where the famous Mark Cuban invested in them. Now they're found in retailers all over the country, including Costco, Sprouts, Target, and Whole Foods. Check out my friends over at www.eatmush.com. And so having those healthy conversations and those gentle reminders, even after years and years of practice and, case studies here and there to remind you, it is good to have those conversations for sure. And I do think you mentioned trying to create this awesome relationship between your engine and your strength. But now we're seeing high rocks, man, where you can absolutely express your engine to its full capacity with those 1,000-meter runs in between each modality, which I think accumulates close to 5 miles within a high rocks competition. And then, you can get after it, and strength is really only challenged a little bit on that sled. The sled seems to be the heaviest part of a high rocks competition. What's been your experience there? And what are your thoughts on Hunter McIntyre? He's become a good friend, and he's trained a little bit out here in San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a rock star at High Rocks or any of those Spartan races. I mean, he has it all. I think he ran, low ones in a half marathon at one point in his career. So he has that running fitness built up, and he certainly still runs quite a bit. And he has the mass and strength to move that sled. And also the machines are strength based, to be able to pull a sub 150 on the ski and a sub 150 on the rower. Like, that's going to require more than just an engine. That requires strength. The farmer's carries are pretty heavy. The sandbag lunge, moderately heavy. So the wall balls at the end, that cripples a lot of just good runners. So having the strength to be able to do those 100 wall balls at the end, close to unbroken or unbroken, that requires some strength. So I think that high rocks is a really cool sport because it blends running with strength training, and I can go and do it without really having to change my training too much. I can, do CrossFit, I can bike, I can do all of my aerobic stuff and show up for a high rocks and do pretty damn well at it. If I want to do really well at it, then I have to back off some on the CrossFit training and really ramp up the running volume, because it does favor, a good runner. Those top guys, they're all good runners. Hunter McIntyre is a very good runner. Dylan Scott, David Magida, they're all very, very fast runners. So you do need to be putting in at least 30 to 50 miles a week if you want to be up with those guys. And, I shifted my training leading up to Chicago, where for 2 to 2.5 months, I was running about 30 to 35 miles per week. And I was focusing on, getting some run durability back. And I did really well in my last high rocks, faster than any of my other high rockses. And a lot of that was associated with just increasing the run volume and, having enough strength to be able to move the sled and to be able to go pretty fast on the machines. So, and I also like that all you need to show up with is a pair of shoes. It's not like triathlon where, you have your bike and your wetsuit and all your gear, your helmet, your bike shoes. Like, you just need some running shoes. It's about an hour to an hour and a half time domain. So it's not, you don't have as much anxiety as you would around going and doing an Ironman distance triathlon. And I like that it happens all at once. Some of the things I don't like about CrossFit, I don't like stopping and going. And, a lot of CrossFit competitions, they're 5-6 hours that you're there, but you only work out for 21 minutes. It's at a very high intensity, but, it's a lot of starting, stopping, and warming up and cooling down. I like the high rocks is just like go out there and let it rip for an hour. And, it's going to hurt, but, there's also pretty low risk of injury, where I feel like with CrossFit, if you don't have your technique dialed in, like, it can be a high risk of injury when you're lifting heavy weights with your heart rate elevated.
Such great descriptions, Eric. The thing with high rocks is it decreases the complexity of movement. A lot of those things, just to piggyback on what we discussed before, are very primal movements. Carry things, lunge things, push things, pull things, and then obviously the monostructural things on the machine, and then a squat and a throw at the end with the wall ball. Those things are things that day-to-day people can do. It's things that the weekend warrior can partake in. And I also think it's incredibly important that all of these modalities fit within the lifestyle of most humans. And sometimes it's really tough to fit all the different modalities of CrossFit. Huge shout out to all the high-level CrossFitters. I did it for a very long time. But I was talking to the Buttery Bros and Heber and Mars recently when they were down here, and it's like, man, my body doesn't like the barbell as much anymore. I'll do it on occasion for fun, especially to play with my friends, but those top percentages where I once was just doesn't feel good anymore. And I think High Rocks is doing a really cool job of lowering the barrier to entry, making it where it's less risk adverse on the body, so that way you can hit your hour to hour and a half, decreased anxiety, have some fun. There's also less spotlight effect because everybody's going at once. So it's not like you're the one man in the arena, where a cool thing of CrossFit is the community component and everybody cheers for the last few people finishing. But some people also really dislike that. They want to blend in. They want to kind of not be, at the forefront of everybody's eyes. And so High Rocks and obstacle course racing is doing a cool job of integrating that, where, just like the CrossFit Open, it's cool how recreational athletes can still be on the same leaderboard as the top dogs and the professionals within the sport. And I love that relatability. I think the bridging of the gap to create consistencies across the board is very, very cool, and is only going to elevate the sport of fitness in these different spots for sure. Looking at basketball, you could watch somebody do something on TV. You can go to the park and try to emulate it. You can't always do that with CrossFit. You can't necessarily go do muscle ups at the park without, the potential of really jacking yourself up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean they are cool sports in that the spectators are the participants of the sport as well. I went to the CrossFit Games last year to spectate, and everyone there, they're participants as well, unless maybe some are just family, but most are students of the sport. And yeah, I mean High Rocks is such a fun environment. It's almost like a nightclub type atmosphere with the neon lights and stuff that they have going on in the rock zone and the loud music they have playing, and yeah, everyone is out there together. They typically rent out a big conference room in a hotel, and the run happens on the perimeter, and then the workout stations are in the middle, and the fans are in the middle cheering for you, and it's just this loud, fun environment. So I'm so stoked that the sport is growing as fast as it is. And I mean, I have some close friends that are directly involved in the sport and marketing it and promoting it. So it's been cool to watch them grow with it
great,
too.
Man. And you mentioned the sandbag lunge. I know recently you formed a partnership with GoRuck, and I just had an amazing conversation with the author of The Comfort Crisis, Michael Easter, and he also works with GoRuck, and he's a huge proponent of getting out to the trail as well and getting outside, hitting the exposure, feeling the wind against his body and the sun and the elements and the rain, and how the brain's constantly having to navigate rocks and boulders and different surfaces and textures. And you mentioned that you have one session a day that has a little bit of risk involved, which makes it kind of fun, a little bit scary, definitely, leaves the channel open for an injury or two here and there, but that's also what makes it fun. And also very relatable to that primal component, hunting and gathering. You're going to cross paths with an animal, so you have a little bit of adrenaline kind of flowing through your veins. What's that experience been like? I know the guys from 75 Hard talk about one of the workouts being outside. And you're living this every day. And it sounds like and looks like, at least following your social, that you bring a crew of people with you and you guys go on some pretty scenic adventures out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Colorado, so the environment here just begs you to be outside all the time. We're 8 minutes from the summit of several mountains, so I can mountain bike from the house and trail run from the house. And, that was a conscious decision to pick this environment where, I know it would be easily accessible and it would just beg me and others to be outside playing. And, going back to that multitasking without multitasking, that's what it is. You're outside, you're getting sunlight, which is so good for you. You're in nature. And when you're doing a skill-based activity with risk associated with it, you're teaching your mind to be completely present. And I think presence is a superpower, especially now with all of these options and distractions that we have in life. Doing things that force your mind to be completely present is almost something that is a necessary skill that we have to do now. So that's why I pick those activities as the things I do outside. Heart rate being elevated, another thing that obviously is providing for that mental clarity, and just you feel good afterwards. And then doing it with others, bonding with people over that discomfort of accomplishing something together in nature, collecting those beautiful views. So yeah, it's combining a number of things just by doing one thing for 60 minutes.
Eric, that's so cool, man. It's creating imagery in my head. I cannot wait for the day that I get to cross paths with you and just have a day, hopefully a few, where we get to play and tackle different challenging events. The next thing I'm really curious about, man, is how did you get integrated with brands? And what's kind of been your philosophy with creating, fostering, and building relationships with founders?
Yeah, so it dates back to about 2016. Oakley invited me to spectate the Ironman World Championships when I was no longer competing, and test and promote some new sunglasses they were coming out with called the Radar Pace sunglasses. And that was really my aha moment. I think I had 9,000 followers then, but I realized that brands were going to start allocating budget towards people that had these niche followings. So, from then on, I started thinking of Instagram specifically as a business and a brand. And how can I add value? How can I evoke some kind of emotion? Those were the things I started to consider with all of my posts. And, I started to learn the skill of photography back then is what Instagram was all about. So, I bought a nice camera, learned how to operate it, learned what aperture and shutter speed and, how to create a good depth of fields. But it was all just self-taught, watching YouTube here and there. And, over time, my role has changed and my thought going into it has changed. Back then, it was very much about, pretty pictures, here's what it looks like on the top of the mountain. And now it's so much more about here's how you get to the top of the mountain. So sharing valuable insights, sharing education, sharing things that, have worked or haven't worked for me, and hoping that can benefit others. And I really feel like that's the best way to grow an audience and awareness now, is sharing value, sharing education, and sharing your unique story. I try not to be salesy, and sometimes I do still have to catch myself, because I do work with a lot of brands and I have to go back to tell your story. That's what resonates most with people. Instead of saying this is the best product in the world, tell my story around it. Why this works for me, how I met the founder, why I started using it, how I feel after it. And that's my unique story. And, if that works for someone else, great. And along the way, I also realized that I didn't want this to be transactional. I never thought it was going to be a business. I never intended it for it to be a business. I just kind of fell into it and, have certainly capitalized on it and, taken the opportunity and ran with it. But everyone I work with now, they're smaller consumer brands where I feel like I can add a lot of value. I have a relationship with the founder at every single one of the companies I work with, where they've become very good friends, and they've come to the house and they've worked out with me and they've been in the sauna with me, so that I have that relationship with them. And I really want to help them grow their brand, because I've grown brands before and I know how, good it feels to grow your team of employees and to grow, your product in the world. And then as far as my audience, I want to expose them to the latest and greatest. And I feel like, now that is something that my audience looks to me for. They obviously want education around lifestyle and health and wellness practices, but, I've tried to team up with these smaller consumer brands that I think are creating really good products in the world or services in the world, and exposing my audience to that. So the value proposition is twofold. What brands can I work with where I can provide a ton of value based on my network, based on helping them raise money, based on the events I can introduce them to, based on the community events that I put on, and then, what value can I bring to my audience with these products?
Such a great description, Eric. And some of the brands that you work with, I've crossed paths with it as well. HVMN is great. Just the ideation around getting ketones into your system. You can stack it with a carbohydrate-based diet if you need to, if you're doing longer, more endurance-style runs. We had Michael Brandt on, and he's just, I love that guy. And he gets after it. He lives the great. Same way that he preaches, and he puts out really great value on his social media as well. Big fan of those guys. Stoked that they're connected with the Department of Defense as well. And the other company that I really like that intrigues me a lot, man, is Ice Barrel, because I think, whether it's Ice Barrel or cold plunge or whatever your version of cold therapy is, I just think cold therapy can help people so much. And I'm sure people that follow me or listen to me are tired of hearing it, but if they actually try it, it's literally a cheat code for life. And I'm just curious how you got into cold therapy and what your relationship is with Ice Barrel.
Yeah. So I love feeling-based businesses and products too. And, both of those ones that you mentioned, HVMN and Ice Barrel, they're feeling-based businesses. Sisu Sauna, feeling-based business. You feel a certain way after you use that product. So a lot of the companies I invest in, I associate that with it too. Does it make people feel a certain way so that, they're going to share that with others because they felt so good from it? So cold exposure for me, well, first heat started for me back in 2012. I was going to an infrared sauna studio in Syracuse, New York called Saunacuse, and I was specifically using it for heat training to prepare for Kona, hot, humid race. And after doing it for a month, I realized afterwards that it was providing me with way more than just, the heat exposure component. I just felt really, really good and energized afterwards. And with a high volume of running back then, it was really helping with the inflammation from the running. I would just feel loose and mobile after doing the sauna sessions. So I continued doing infrared sauna mainly up until 2017. And then in 2017, I was exposed to this place called Denver Sports Recovery here in Colorado. And they have an infrared sauna, and they also have a hot tub and a cold plunge. And the protocol there for a lot of the people that were members, they would do 50 minutes in the sauna and then 3 rounds of 5 minutes in the hot tub and 5 minutes in the cold plunge. Cold plunge was maybe 50 degrees. At that time, that was a major shock to my system. And, that was sauna on overdrive doing the contrast therapy. After doing that, I'm like, damn, I feel so good afterwards, just energized and tremendous mental clarity. And, after doing it for a year, all of those aches and pains from the Ironman years started to go away. And I also saw the stress resilience benefit of, I could be having the worst day in the world, but once I hopped in that cold water, like everything shifted, life was great again. And then, I met Bickle and got exposed to the barrel saunas and the ice baths. And, now that's what we do, are the barrel saunas and the ice baths. But I mean, there's a million ways you can do this. You can take a hot Epsom salt bath and you're going to get the benefits of heat if the water is hot enough. I still love hot Epsom salt baths. And oftentimes when I travel, I book an Airbnb that has a bathtub so that I know I at least have access to that. Can obviously fill that same tub with cold water or put some ice in it as well. Cold showers, definitely you're going to get some benefits from it. I think the fully engulfing yourself in cold water is much more beneficial than the cold shower. But, I think the cold shower can certainly help with mindset and, there could be some immune boosting effects of it. But yeah, I mean, fully getting in cold water, dunking your head, that's really where it's at. And then the traditional saunas, that's become my go-to just because, they're generally hotter, they heat up quicker, your core temperature body is going to heat up quicker, and you can do that contrast therapy in shorter sessions.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned mindset. Are there any mindset tricks that you use? Are you a big journaler, or do you brain dump or write down some of your thoughts and ideations to start or end a day? What are some of the tricks of the trade that you use to maintain this high level of resilience to have such a high output lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely use Apple Notes and Evernote. One of the big hacks for me is I have a list of about 100 people that I want to stay in contact with regularly. I think, the conversations that you're having with people are going to shape so many of the opportunities that come to you in life. So I do keep that list. I use Apple Notes to write down notes. I mean, I like planning a lot. So my workouts are planned, my days are planned. I use Google Tasks for all of the, the posts that I have to do, all of the podcasts that I want to do. So Google Tasks has been really good of just breaking it down so I don't get overwhelmed every month with like, what should I do today? Like it's all written out there. From a gratitude standpoint, this was something really cool that Sarah and I did last year. We started this gratitude jar and we wrote in it almost every single night. And we also had our friends write in it. And it's a great way to end your day of, expressing those things that mattered most to you throughout the day. But what was the most powerful thing was reading it at the end of the year and it being a pleasant reminder of what you want your days to be like, who you want to be around, what you want to be doing, the environments you want to be in. Reading that gratitude jar was a reminder of like, wow, these are the people that we have to surround ourselves with. These are the things that we just love doing together. And these are the environments that we enjoy being in. So I would definitely encourage people to start that gratitude jar. Great way to end your day. But most importantly, just a reminder at the end of the year of the things that matter most in life.
Consider it done. Right after this episode, I'm putting that gratitude jar in the middle of the table. And that's definitely something we'll implement into the practice. Eric, you have a world of knowledge. You do so many cool things and provide so much value to the world. And I feel so honored and humbled to officially cross paths with you, not via Instagram DMs. As we wrap things up, man, are there any final thoughts that you'd love to share with our audience?
I mean, movement is medicine. That's kind of my moniker that I live by. And when you look at the food pyramid, exercise for me is at the top of that pyramid. I often get asked like, what supplements do you use? And, some of the questions that I feel like are just icing on the cake, the big component of living a vibrant life is moving. The more I move, the better I feel. So, I think a lot of your listeners are probably CrossFit athletes. So, they're doing that. But yeah, just a reminder that moving as often as you can is what really leads to so many other positive things in life.
I appreciate that, man. For those of you listening or observing on YouTube, if you enjoyed my conversation with Eric Hinman today, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Till next time, guys. Take care, Eric. I'll cross paths with you soon, buddy.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Are you over 35 and in need of a solid training program? Are you looking to improve your athleticism and keep up with the younger athletes in your CrossFit gym? Then look no further than our Invictus Masters program. This program places year-round emphasis on mobility and stability exercises with movements that we have seen directly benefit our Masters athletes. Our program is led by Nicole DeHart and offers a training program designed specifically for Masters athletes who are looking to compete at a higher level in the sport of CrossFit. Some of our top Masters athletes in the world train with us, including CrossFit Games champion Kevin Kester, Matt Beals, and Pat Sprague. You can learn more about their stories and the Invictus Masters program by checking out their episodes right here on the Invictus Mindset Podcast. If you'd like more information about the current training cycle or to join the Invictus Masters program, please email Nicole at invictusathlete.com. That's Nicole at invictusathlete.com.